gentlemen, ladies, good evening. Welcome to this, the next installment of the Gran Torino. We are indeed delighted to have your company. We are indeed joined by Satirical Soldier, who's sitting in the green room and quite despondent because all I have in the fridge is non-alcoholics. And we do know surgical? Well, his script writing is surgical, but Satirical Soldier sitting in the background will be joining us presently. I'm hoping that the interwebs holds up and that his signal is strong. Will give the rest of the community, the tribe, a chance or two to come. I am late by 3 minutes. I will, of course, give myself the obligatory 20 press-ups, 20 sit-ups, 20 star jumps after the show, not during, after the show. Arabu! The next creation from the wonderful Wolfie. I know many of you are asking for the website to place your orders, but at the moment, we're working on it. If you want to send your email to wolfandcroft at protonmail.com, send your specifics to the Wolf, and she will endeavor to get your latest produce. I quite like this one here, Era Abu. We have Dean, Pat, Andrew, Owen, Nikki, Mark, Al, Hogman, MC, John, Mr. T, Clive O'Hagan, Paddy Kearney, Powers Youth, Martin Murphy also held great channel as well, Martin Murphy. I will proffer up the link during the show there when we begin talking to the one, the only, to Satirical. Ireland on lockdown also in the house, Reb Irish. Don't forget, I think it's after tonight's show, correct me, you can send me that message there. The mods, if Melissa Cumier is jumping in for casual chat tonight after this broadcast, we'll try and finish on time, 9 o'clock. You'll find Melissa joining the team over there. We do have a video broadcast for her. She explains, obviously, the bouts of hyperinflation and why that's coming in. Many of you would have seen the video that she released on her channel earlier on today. We'll touch on it with Satirical as well. I do have, and I'm just going to give the headlines here because I know many of you will be sitting in waiting for Mike's input on what's happening in regards to his situation with a file being sent from the DP. Well, we don't know if the file's being sent, but on Garda Síochána knocking to his door on alleged sound, because my shots fired, digital sounds are now scary to the powers that be, the most powerful man in Ireland, apparently. If you check out, we've got a couple of drops over on locals. Brought out this old beast again. We found it in the Wayback Machine. We thought we'd lost it from the YouTube, but this is our incursion into Ruski 2019, 2018. I'm not sure. Good to see you, Al, over on Rumble. And I just posted it back up, primarily to show you the smell of cat piss and dementia that our opposition are flagrantly full of fond of. If they're not doing fentanyl or any sort of high medication, they're out there screaming cats and smelling like piss-riddled dementia patients. No offense to the dementia patients, but I'm sure you don't get it. Joking aside. Also, I have done a series of relationships and sex education during the first lockdown. We read through the entirety of the proposed bill for royal relationships and sex education, and they are still backed up over on the BitChute or backed up on Odyssey. There's a bit of getting through them. We did devote about 6, I think it was 6 in total streams throughout that week, and we covered it from start to finish. So you can, we might take off the audio and place them up there so you can listen to them on playback on while you're at work, whatever. But this little small section here, 3 or 4 minute broadcast over there. I've also dropped it over to the Gran Torino Telegram channel there as well in its entirety. Mods in the house, appreciate that. Just to confirm that she is on lockdown this evening at 9 o'clock. So please do make your way over there, and I will drop a link to that on the screen as we get through it. Now, I know, Mike, we do have a problem with the interwebs on Mike's end, so I won't go through these articles, but it'll give us a preface, or it'll give us a starting or a jump off point for the roundabout narrative that's being created to drive these hate crime speeches. If you watch that stream or that little video broadcast of those idiots attacking me during the Ruski thing, there was already placards there for hate crime or hate speech, and to bring it in part of the narrative, the useful or the useless eaters, as we'll call them, trying to bring in these draconian hate speech or to curtail freedom of expression. We know why. As many other societies around the world are dealing with what is the Marxist infiltration into academia and education, and now in front of our very eyes, pushing on now to primary school education. Um, the Epoch Times posited this, that Marxists seek to destabilize American society through the sexualization of young people. Expert. We might touch in on some of those concepts there with the Epoch Times, but as we have known, if you paid scant attention to Yuri Bezmenov and stuff like that, it is one of the basic components of an attack on a society to destroy it from within. Is as the article says, that it was a deliberate attempt by Marxism back in the day to infiltrate societies, to grab the youth, to let them attach to anything nationhood or cultural attachments to their own culture, but to destroy them and do as thou wilt sort of ethos pushed out to the youth, thereby leaving them susceptible to the powers that be that want to indoctrinate them. Also, the Federalist posting this, that now more and more reports of experimenting on trans kids has horrifying and irreversible consequences. Only took them about 2 or 3 years to come after. We've been banging and screaming from the rafters and the rooftops, but many people that go through this transition, because as it's pushed out through TikTok, it's deemed to be the acceptable cultural norm or manufactured consent by design, that, oh, look, everybody's doing it. Even TikTok says that 20% of Zoomers fall in or identify as transgender, but the minimal reporting on the after effects or the devastating events when people come, or those young people come to realize they can never revert what they've started out on, whether they've had double mastectomies, whether they've started partaking in hormone blockers or hormone increasers. That first jab, like I say, and I make it to the comparison to the Hohe 19, is irreversible and does come with devastating consequences. Again, these are anecdotal stories from the United States, again, forced in the line of the battlefield of the cultural war, and coming over to ourselves over here in Europe. But again, I won't go through it with you entirely. I will drop the links in the chats over there. And before I forget, and without much further ado, how could I do it, Hardy Bees? I did it, unbeknownst and willingly to myself. Great to see Al, not only on Rumble over there, all by myself. Al doesn't want to be all by himself. Get your ass over there. I know Odyssey is playing up on the streams, but Rumble is a good backup there as well. And again, it's tying in together with other platforms that are, going decentralized, but still in a centralized control on their servers. I talk about Truth Social Media. I talk about all the other platforms. We'll get to talking about Elon Musk's the latest acquisition of Twitter, which again, if somebody that's touting to implant a neural chip into your brain, also wants to provide free Wi-Fi all around the world. If anything is presented at free, you're the product. Always understand that, no matter how well. So we don't get lost up in the cardboard king and the New World Order trying to give us the controlled opposition to say, oh, Elon's fighting for my freedom of speech. He really cares about us. He doesn't deserve us. He's out to make a buck. But again, if they're exposing the narrative, we get to see. I think Mike will probably join me in saying that the timeline is ramped up. They are pushing beyond belief, particularly here in the Republic of Ireland, for those of you viewing it further afield. The attack on property rights now, and the open blatant, the Irish Git, Michael Brazil, has done another posit on his channel there as well, not a posit, but broadcast, showing you that the stickers going up on what are called vacant properties. Your property has been identified as vacant and will come under the delimitation of private property for the common good under the new revamped 39th Amendment. I believe it's the 39th Amendment, but we're going to touch on that. I also want to bring up, Mike, about the Humanist Association of Ireland and their submission to the Minister of Justice back in 2021 on the general scheme of the Judicial Appointments Commission, primarily concerning themselves with the removal of the first paragraph in the oath of office for judicial appointments. Now, given that all judicial appointments, the Supreme Court, High Court, are political appointments, they're all invariably already bent and already skewed. But they attest, or the oath must set out an oath and undertake this oath, that in the presence of Almighty God, I do solemnly and sincere promise and declare that I will dutifully and faithfully and to the best of my knowledge power execute the office of Chief Justice, or as the case may be, without fear or favour, affliction or ill will towards any man, and that I will uphold the Constitution and the laws. May God direct and sustain me. They posit Under our constitution, high public office in Ireland can only be attained if one holds a religious belief. Our culture system ignores the rights of non-religious, despite the fact that 1 in 10 Irish citizens now claim to have no religion. We hereby call on the Minister to avail of this opportunity through the Judicial Appointments Commission to amend the draft by removing the necessity for religious oath. And we all come to understand that our inalienable rights are granted to us, given to us by a higher being above men, whether that be, as you describe, a God or whatever, but no man grants or affirms your rights. That's a personal responsibility for you to defend and protect them. In their constitution, I do have the constitution laid out. I'll touch on that with Mike. Also, the broadcast, many of us pretty much aware that the European identity is now on the cards. This is all leading into the World Economic Forum's European social credit system. But for your design and for your ease of comfort, every time an app or a website asks us to create a new digital identity, this is Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission. We have no idea what happens to our data. In reality, that is why the Commission will propose a secure European identity, one that we trust and that any citizen can use anywhere in Europe to do anything from paying your taxes to renting a bicycle. Our technology, we can control ourselves what data is used and how. The we is the very big club. It's a very big club, and you and I ain't in it. They will control it. Before we burn Mike's systems there, and I'll give him a chance there just to wipe the froth off his beard there from the guzzles of baskets of ale that he's consumed.
You can see me.
I'm only messing there, bro. Let me bring you in there. Great to have you. Hardy Bees, sorry for not giving you a mention. I'll give you a shout out towards the end. Michael, thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you for jumping in at short notice. Let me get rid of that. I have to say, I very much enjoyed your conversation with Phil O'Neill, and the one and only, the great Chopper as well. Very earthy and grounded conversation. You know, people will disagree with various different points that each of the speakers spoke about, but the one concerning Drive is that not only do we recognize there's an assault, an invasion of types on our rights here as citizens, afforded the benefit of a constitution which our dear leaders no longer seem to adhere to, and quite readily jumping at the opportunity to sign up to the World Health Organization's pandemic response, thereby usurping all nation states' constitutions. Because if it's only declared in an emergency, you can be guaranteed that the government is going to create an emergency at every opportunity to steal us of our rights. Mike, I don't know where you want to touch off on, lead us off on the back of the conversation with Mike and Philip O'Dwyer. Just to add, we will touch in on your personal situation again. The An Garda Síochána knocking to you. I do ask that if you haven't seen it, head over to Philip O'Dwyer on YouTube and catch up with that conversation with Satirical Soldier and Chopper. I keep forgetting Mike's name. To you, Mike.
It was actually a fantastic discussion with the boys. It's not something I'm really used to doing, but we touched on an awful lot of subjects. But I think one thing the three of us absolutely agreed with fundamentally was our right to speak in the first place and our right to discuss our deeply held ideas. Now, only today, believe it or not, I found out that I was reported again to the Gardaí by Cathal Crowe TD down in County Clare. I have a video called A Warning for the Woke, and in it I basically describe what I think of Cathal Crowe and how I interpret his policies. At least he gave a speech in the Dáil, so I interpreted what he said for my audience, and I'm writing a video now as a response to what was written in the newspaper. But these people fundamentally do not care about your freedom of speech. And what I've come to notice lately is the only people who seem to be exercising these powers are the politicians over the ordinary citizen. In the last 48 hours, I've ended up in two newspaper articles, essentially trying to silence me. And they're going about it by saying that there's a digital gunshot sound effect in my videos that sounds menacing. Now, I don't care what they think it is personally. As far as I'm concerned, I won't even do it. I explained it anyway. I explained it in a video yesterday called Dear Taoiseach, a Breakdown. But if they want to come for me for my deeply held opinions and a digital gunshot noise, let them bring it on, because I look forward to showing Ireland how tyrannical we've gone by way of trying to express yourself honestly and truthfully.
So something a little bit like this, Mike.
You know, God forbid the noise would hurt your feelings, but that's where we're at now, you know.
Oh, my fifis, oh, my fifis. Again, completely contrived. Again, they're looking for what they will do inevitably, as Mike said in your conversation, they'll make martyrs of us. They'll make martyrs of you.
I think so, yeah.
And I don't know if that's what they want to do. I think the assault on private property is their most concern as well. I'm going to frame it out here, Mike. You don't have to agree with me, my personal opinion, but the way I'm seeing it and the rush for uncapped immigration from a situation that, all right, number one, it's not a member state of the European Union. It's not our concern. This is a NATO expansionism pushing the big bear. But the fact that our foreign minister, Simon Kowertny, jumped over to Poland to tell the Polish that we'll take an unlimited amount, smacks of me that this is their way to increase their way to borrow off the COVID-19 fund, not the Ukrainian war fund, but the unlimited printing and the reserves of the money they have. This is them saying, right, you attach this amount of refugees, you take them in, and we'll loan you the money to carry on your economy. This is by way of them to stifle or hide inflation. If inflation presents itself too much or too quickly in the economy, too many are going to feel the bite of the fuel increases, the cost of living soaring. They're trying their best to slow this down. They can't borrow exponentially on selling on public lands, which is just an affront to every Irishman and woman selling off our lands. But so what they'll do is they will deprive or delimit private property on the guise of an emergency for the current war situation, and thereby borrow to procure houses. They're now, for those of you who feel, they're now using our local councils to purchase vacant properties or new properties coming online. And I remind you again, the government does not produce or create money. It spends money. This is on the back of exponential borrowing off the taxpayer. You and I are those ordinary brothers and sisters trying to turn a buck again. But all of us now pointing firmly fair that they're openly, gone full Marxist now. This has gone beyond socialism, liberalism. This is outright Marxism in the economics of we will deprive your personal property or private properties because we can't have self-sufficient Serbs. You have to be under our control. To you, Mike.
No, I think that's a very interesting assessment. I think if anybody really thinks that the issue of moving so many refugees into Ireland is quite simply kind of a human rights effort to protect people, I think they're very naive to assume that that's the only goal, that is quite simply a human rights goal. The Ukraine is a massive country, and the war is focused in certain aspects of the country. It's not all in total war. And again, while I understand trying to get people out of there to safety, and I get it completely, and I understand how some people might feel safer in other parts of the world, whatever about it, but to naively think that it's only about saving lives, I think there's something else fundamentally going on. I really do. I think your finger really is on the pulse when it comes to this situation, GT.
I'll offer you a second summation as well. What I believe is putting it on for. This is unfettered. This is state-sponsored human trafficking.
I would agree.
This is human trafficking right in front of your face, because many of the refugees that are placed in different parts of Europe are coming into contact with that state's multicultural experiment or that diversity that are being held in whatever sort of situations. But the Ukrainians innocently being put into positions or provision centers or whatever you want to call them, and then experiencing the full welcoming mat of diversity. You only have to look to the likes of Sweden. And again, they want to return to the war zone because they feel safer there than they do in the welcoming mat of shall we say, Ireland, shall we say, Germany, shall we say, the United Kingdom, anywhere else. But this is unfettered human trafficking as part of the World Economic Forum to swamp us with a diversity, to smash a homogeneic state. It's to smash our homogeneity. You, Mike.
But yeah, when you move so many people into such a small island from a different culture, it is going to have a detrimental effect on the home culture itself. And for some reason in Ireland, it's actually a crime to value your own culture. It's If you say, I love Ireland and Irish culture and I don't want to see it change, for some reason you have a phobia, which I find absolutely, it's to use a word from Cathal Crowe, it's sinister to suggest that you have a problem in valuing your own culture more than the culture of another nation. But I think about the Titanic. I think we've accepted, is it what, 25,000 at this stage now, but it's as if Ireland is one of those lifeboats and it's already full. But the government will be quite happy to throw Irish people into the sea in order to accommodate other people because they look somewhat benevolent. I'm incapable of rationalizing what they're trying to do, only to suggest again that if you think it's only about human rights and keeping people safe, it's a naive mindset. There's absolutely more going on behind the scenes.
Well, let's look closer to home as well, and on the back of the French farce. Clearly, more evidence coming out there again of voter fraud, and the whole thing being susceptible to voter fraud. I don't think we're going to get anything like, and I don't think we can afford to wait around like the United States to do an audit over there. But our Taoiseach in waiting, the current Taoiseach, Leo Varadkar, and we must be careful, Michael. We must give them their required titles, because we do know that we are under observations, and these telling conversations might titillate the fragile nerves of those that be these dear leaders. Leo Varadkar tweeted out congratulating Emmanuel Macron, the golden and sacked candidate of choice to the World Economic Forum's Young Discipline, and from another young leader of the devotees of the World Economic Forum, he shouts, the first French president to be re-elected in 20 years. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. A victory for Europe, for France, for democracy, and for the political centre. A clear defeat, now check this out, of populism, nationalism, and for Putin. Merci la France. But there again, on the eve of our Easter writings, imagine saying that on the anniversary at the beginning of the 1916 Rising. That was from archiving Irish diversity stuff on Telegram as well, just that gave us that positive. But there we have one of our own dear leaders, like refuting national sovereignty, all of those buzzwords. It's a clear assault on us. Your thoughts, Mike?
I'm actually thinking about his older stuff before he even got into politics. Like he appeared so conservative, you know, and he was pro-life and he was pro-freedom of speech. And I think he suggested at one stage that if you can't work as a migrant, you need to leave. I'm fairly sure he said that too. But my God, when he went into power, he literally turned into something irrecognizable. And it just appears to me as well that he seems to despise Ireland. He seems to want to change it to model some side of like, again, more than Klaus Schwab. I've no doubt that real deep Marxist madness is rooted in Varadkar, and that he's trying to realize it through at least policies that he's trying to put across as benevolent. But anyone with a thinking brain can realize that he's trying to stifle freedom of speech. He wants to crush your freedom to dissent. He wants to take your property. How can you conclude anything else? I couldn't tell you. It fascinates me. It stuns me thinking about him.
I was looking through the archives there, trying to find that tweet, because plenty of the other channels were talking about Leo back in the day, and he was there very tough on immigration and emigration, and I don't quite have it to hand. If any of the mods that can contact me have that. But again, as you said, wheeling himself out on first as a national conservative or proper conservative, and talking about all the buzzwords that would have been slightly, a little bit taboo, but they were on people's minds. And he, like being the good Fine Gael throw out, he said, oh yeah, we're going to get tough on border control, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then a complete 180.
He was literally the perfect subversive. That's how I would view him. Like, because he did end up being a Taoiseach once before, and he'll get in there again. He was the perfect subversive.
A complete Mancurian, the epitome of the Mancurian, could not be questioned because of his ethnicity, and anybody there, any sort of questioning or ridiculed or gave him some sort of skepticism, was instantly shut down and labelled one of the isms straight off the bat.
Yeah, exactly. An ism or a phobia, exactly. Yeah.
Thereby quashing any dissent or criticism as an effective leader. I believe. No, I don't. I don't have the tweet that he's doing. Let's go back to your main talking point as well. And I think it's very brave of you as well. At the moment that you know that you're being monitored, and a quick shout to Telegram as well. I know you're only getting the one perspective. I do, and I hope to be able to work on that soon to bring in the multiple feeds on Telegram as well, because you just apparently stuck with the one perspective. But the attention now, many of us now, as I say, focusing on the property rights. I want to show some of the labels that are appearing on people's properties here now in the Republic of Ireland. Just to give you a flavour, Flav, I'll read that out for you there as well, Mike. This property, stamped on the window, this property has been identified as vacant. It is the objective of Waterford City and County Council to return this property to productive use. The council can offer various means and supports to the owner to achieve this. And if you are the owner or have any information on this property, please contact Vacant Homes, blah, blah, blah. It goes on. But Mike, given we just had a census, they've just done themselves their own audit. They know exactly who, what, and when is where. So they're going to come out with the easy, low-hanging fruit and not make it quite so obvious, you know?
Absolutely, yeah.
There is a conversation here as well that happened over the weekend when a judicial person or someone of note, let me see if I can bring it up quickly here without falling over. And again, it's Late Stage Ireland had to produce. There's a 6-minute conversation. Oh, come on. I just had a teed. I do have a teed up there. Sorry, Mike. Just will you entertain the troops there quickly? Give us a little dance, but there.
If only I was a natural at this, just like you.
Stop. I'm just making it up as I go along, and I'm just trying to prevent people from suffering. Are you ready?
Emotional damage.
Yep. And every time we jump in Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we like to shake off the cobwebs. We know it's all serious. We know it's all a little bit doom, but we like to laugh in their fucking faces. Keep on coming. Oh, shh. They're listening. They get afraid. They'll be frightened. Don't worry about it. Let's have a little dig into the conversation over on mainstream. We'll chop it up. You can jump in at any time when you want to make a point on it, Mike. I'm sure you've heard but listen to this for those of you further afield.
But there is, as you've been saying there, a need for government to think outside the box now, find ways of bringing the existing housing stock in the country into use and quickly. So just to talk a little bit about this, I'm joined on the line by Dr. Rachel Walsh, who's Associate Professor of Law at Trinity College Dublin. Rachel, good afternoon to you.
Hi, Damien. Good to see you.
Yeah, if we can start with a basic and broad question. Does government legally have a right to take over properties that are not in use to provide accommodation for those needs? In other words, vacant or derelict buildings around the country?
Yes, Damien, the government has extensive powers across a range of different pieces of legislation to acquire property compulsorily for a whole range of reasons.
I would attest they were primarily set out for an emergency war situation, but our original context in the 37 Constitution said that every citizen has a house, has a right to a dwelling. And again, they framed that now as that every resident has a right to a dwelling for very much this situation here as well. But now that we are under emergency legislation, because the COVID emergency legislation powers hasn't gone away, this is all front-loading fluff pieces to say, oh, this is what we must do in this event of this national emergency, this crisis, the poor Ukrainian people and Ukrainians of every colour on every match of the spectrum coming in and having just recently purchased a Ukrainian passport are come flooding in because as any fraudster around the world, as they tell their people back home, come to Ireland. It's virgin territory. They are wide open for corruption and fraud, and seemingly they welcome it. But we'll carry on with a little bit this. Like I say, Mike, jump in at any time if there's anything you wanted to touch on.
Include property that is derelict and, more broadly speaking, property that's needed for housing purposes. Those can be acquired compulsorily by the state. And
is there a distinction to be made between a derelict building and a vacant building?
Yeah, quite a big distinction would be concerned with buildings that are really a threat in some respect, either to safety or to the amenity of the area in terms of being almost in a ruinous state, whereas vacancy is what it says on the tin is simply property that is empty for a specified period of time.
And there would be exemptions.
Now, we made our deposits on that as well. If we've an elderly relation, in a hospital for a period of time, if the family home is put on the lock and key because they're not able to stay there or they're not there, that's deemed as a vacant property. Again, your holiday home. Again, not everybody's a millionaire. Some people have worked hard while they're. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, what people should worry about, just like what you're saying, is the people in power who want your property get to define all of these terms. And they're constantly redefining terms to mean something else, so that they have a broader, they have broader power to do what they want. And just as a small example, there, in Coco's law, the one that the DPP may charge me or may not charge me with, causing harm. The definition of harm in that law can include to cause alarm. Now, that's not a kind of traditional definition for harm. But what I'm trying to say is, if they can make harm just to startle you, and then you've committed a crime, God knows what they can do with the definition of vacant or derelict. Vacant could be no one has been there in a month, no one has been there in a week, and it's something that people should be wary of.
But again, as you say, they define the full meaning, whatever the word is. Like if it's for the good of the safety, they're saying these are originally designed for houses that have fallen into ill repair and could cause, if they're on a public street or on a public front and parts of the building are falling into ruin and may fall to the ground and possibly a passerby getting hurt. That kind of dereliction and that kind of vacancy that could be remedied by the state to say, look, we can't seem to track down the owner. Well, they would do it. They'd have all the deeds everywhere. That's a misnomer. But that they'd have to intervene to make the safety of it. This is again for the guise of a greater safety concern of the Ukrainian people, not the property holder, not the people in the area, but the people that they're bringing in en masse, 24/7. People talking about taxi driver friends talking about going up to Dublin Airport, and they can't make out if people are coming or going, because the queues are up and down the streets. It's a property speculation bonanza holiday for those coming in who can muffle a few words of Ukrainian and will not be asked questions and just be prioritized up on lists. But we'll go a little bit forward with the Trinity professor just to see if there's anything else there that tickles your fancy. But I will round it off, and we will come back to the elephant in the room, which is the groomers and the grooming and sexualization of our children through the relationship and sexual education. Let's have a little finish on this one here.
There, because maybe it's subject to probate, or maybe there's people living there that are probably not there at the moment because they're in hospital with illness or whatever. But anyway, just if we pick any rural town around the country, mainly those that have been bypassed, that many of us might have passed through in recent times and seen so many shop fronts boarded up, so many empty buildings. So if we picture one of those typical villages, Rachel, what can the government do to CPO those buildings? Is there a lot involved?
There's a range of powers, as I mentioned, and it's probably important to note that a building wouldn't have to be derelict or vacant in order to be susceptible to compulsory purchase in this context. Once there's an identified need of the property for a housing purpose, for a housing authority or a local authority, that comes within the compulsory purchase powers.
Again, Mike, I know I keep jumping in there as well, but if there's a perceived need, so they will define the need. This is the need to house refugees, and again, we're
absolutely, absolutely.
That will then be ensconced into society, into zeitgeist that they've granted themselves those powers, and then going further on, when they'll say, "Well, look, you have a spare bedroom. There is a need now to house these, and we will extend our emergency powers to include this," and it'll be a never-ending march. If people don't get out and defend their property rights, you don't deserve any freedoms, but first you don't understand them. But more importantly, you don't stand up and defend them. That's what you and Mike and the rest of the guys and ladies are all doing in our own small way. And I'm very aware, sorry to hog the mic, Mike, but I'm very much aware that more and more of I had a little phrase there I wanted to call them, not NPCs and not Joe Normies, but those that are coming around and are looking for different sources of information are joining conversations like yours, Phillips, and Mike's, coming into broadcast, listening in to Dave Cullen, the great Dave Cullen, Ninja Knight, all the new talkers. And if I miss anybody, just because it's from the top of my head, but everybody is doing sterling work. and we are all drawing the ire. So keep marching forward on it. Sorry, Mike, I jumped over your point there.
No, you're absolutely right there. Like there's three things at the top of the list for me as well. Like, you know, and no doubt I can name a few more. But speech, protest, property. Like those three are really high on the scale for me. They're very fundamental to how I live. You know, if you can't argue through speech, if you don't have the right to dissent, and if you can't keep what you earn, what kind of a society are you living in? Like,
yeah, I want to make these two. Let me change over here. I want to, how shall I say, strategize with you here as well. Again, when people are approached by mainstream journalists or any sort of vox populi on the street, and again, we make note of it all the time, that people always quantify when they start out. I'm not racist, but I'm not homophobic, but thereby, like I say, discounting anything because they know you'll acquiesce. You're already setting up yourself in a weaker position. Given the fact now that many people won't touch what is the real elephant in the room in regards to the housing crisis, is the unfettered open door policy of unverified and unchecked immigration into the country. You cannot have exponential demand and only a limited supply and then blame the supply for not keeping pace with the demand, when it's quite easy. All you need to do is stifle the demand or restrict the demand, i.e. border control. Many people will automatically don't want to touch that because of the emotional attachment into the war, to the Ukrainian refugees coming in and thereby fleeing a war torn, and people can't broach that. But this elephant in the room, this specifically for parents, is the new sex education that's being pushed out in Scotland, in the UK, in many places in Europe, and now coming to the fore here in the Republic of Ireland. And again, it is the overt sexualization of and teaching of pornography literacy, the definitions of gender ideology and all this kind of stuff. And they're going into the primary school, the primary classroom. This, I believe, is a strategy that parents can get on board with. Parents can, skip that elephant in the room, and they can't face or step outside and confront it head on in relation to the immigration without the cries of fascist, racist, all that jazz and all those buzzwords. Now this is on your doorstep to your children. This is the choice you have to make. Are you going to allow the sexualization of your child in a public school, or are you going to withdraw them from homeschool, or are you going to go and write the letters that need to be drafted to the principals? One of the acolytes over on Telegram just drafted a letter and sent this to the school. And again, the INTO, sorry to hog the mic, we might play such on Professor Bright's thoughts on the IMTO, which has a video that is attaches to it. But the letter that this parent wrote was to the principal: "Dear principal, during the Easter break, we have become aware of a program that is about to be rolled out throughout Ireland's primary schools involving, quote, relationships and sexual education, with a heavy focus on LGBT and transgenderism, with this also being taught to young children in junior and senior infants. We also noted the below extremely disturbing video released from the INTO detailing such as teachers speaking about sexuality and transgenderism with very young children. We must state that we find the above agenda completely inappropriate, abhorrent, and an unbelievable overstep by the Irish Education Board. We do not send our children into schools to be confused and sexualized. These are the exact steps taken by pedophiles to groom children, and therefore we have great concerns with regards to the type of personnel littered throughout the Irish Education Boards, such as INTO, who are pushing this agenda. And we must state that this is absolutely nothing to do with homophobia, transgender phobia, etc. We have absolutely no issue with adult sexual orientation or deciding what they want to do with their bodies. This is about confusing and sexualizing children, which is grotesquely wrong, abhorrent, and completely unacceptable." It goes on, and it's on my Telegram channel there as well if you want to copy and paste that. Mike, your thoughts first of all, and then we might play that video that they were talking about.
It's very well written, actually. People are going to have to get this out of their head, that if they decline to succumb to an ideology because they just don't agree with it, it's not a phobia. Don't accept or even worry about the fact that they may suggest you're transphobic. There's a way to not, there's a way to decline this education, but you're just going to have to stand firm. You're going to have to take it as it is. But that lady who wrote that letter is absolutely right. When adults partake in telling your children teaching your children about matters of sex, it is actually grooming. The only people, as far as I'm concerned, that should be teaching children anything about sex is the parent or the family member. You can teach about biology all you like, but not sex. And again, gender ideology is exactly that. It is anti-scientific. And what it does is it treats the feelings of an individual as paramount. And what you're supposed to do is stop thinking altogether so that you can accept the delusion of the person beside you. Gender dysphoria is a real illness. And we shouldn't, in my opinion, we shouldn't treat that illness by everybody else succumbing to a delusion. I think that's wrong on so many levels again. And I think if parents do accept this coming into the classroom, you'll see in a few years' time that children, as they get older, they will probably opt for hormone therapy. They will probably opt for the various surgeries. And I suspect you will see a huge spike in mental illness and suicide.
Oh, it's already off the charts. There's two videos that are being pushed out by the INTO for the classroom. They're 2 minutes long. We'll play. The first one is intro video number 1. What does gay mean? And we'll have a listen to this. Let me bring this over.
One day I had a pupil named Ray who asked a question in class out of the blue. "Teacher, what does gay mean?" One of the other children, Julie, chimed in. "My mum says Georgie's mum is gay." Another child, Sergio, said, "She can't be. Only boys can be gay." It would have been far easier to discuss this in a planned way, but the conversation was happening now, and I had to support their understanding in an appropriate way. So I asked, "Where did you hear that word, Ray?" "I heard it online," he answered. I thought it was positive that the question wasn't coming from name calling. Then I said, "Well, gay can mean a few things, but mostly it's about love." I explained to him that when you're older, the person you were in love with could be another boy, or it could be a girl. A boy.
It goes on again, and I don't want to cut across it, but we get the general gist. Gay is not.
What a conversation for a teacher to have with a student. You know what I mean? If I was a teacher and a child came to me and said, "Sir, what's gay?" I'd say, "Fuck off and ask your mother." That's the response I think you should give them, as opposed to, "Well, gay is actually all of these activities." And you know what I mean? Even if they said, "Teacher, what's straight?" Ask your fucking mother. And sorry for getting vulgar there, but that's the response the teacher should give, in my opinion.
Well, now, like, even broaching this subject, then we're broaching it maybe with a little bit of humor, a little bit of aplomb, but the very seriousness of the conversation as well. I don't know if many parents, or does it just brush over their heads, like they're happy with the park the children off at school, and just have trust in the institution. Will teach them accordingly, reading, writing, arithmetic, a general sense of history, and a general sense of geography to know where they are on this plane of existence. But no, we're going now deeper and deeper to let's as a 5 or 6 year old, let's discuss your sexuality. Let's discuss your sexual desires in a room full of children. And I, the teacher, who has fucking nothing really to do with you, let's talk about your sexual desires. If that isn't the definition of grooming, I don't know what is. Given what we see, the Disney stocks just crashing through now, more parents in the United States using what is an effective tool and cancelling their subscriptions. Like all of us, I know the majority of you have cancelled Netflix, have cancelled Disney. Like, if you're still paying for football, even though your idols are dropping dead in front of your eyes, and still going, "Oh no, this is nothing to do with the Bills, or nothing to do with the
injection." They are out there. You know that, those people.
They do. I even had people ask me, going, was anybody taken ill over the football game? Anybody, like, it's expected now. It's normal every game. Your favorite sports commentator being taken away, Matt Letizia, just going, like, as the Aussie sports player, going, "Well, yeah, we're having a spike increase in Bell's palsy." One of the commentators, "You have Bell's palsy?" "Yeah, I do, and it's kind of suspicious that I did take the vaccine, and but I'm not against vaccinations per se. I just have a question about this vaccine."
Yeah.
Your fucking lip is your eyeball is frozen. That's great. If it wasn't so serious, it'd be fun, you know. But again, I must, and again, I must try to push the idea or the talking point behind this. Just again, for those of you that may not be too comfortable or adept at speaking about possibly the immigration or touching or broaching on subjects further out of people's realms, this is the subject that we must talk to children. Is there a need for children as 5, 6, 7-year-olds to be talking about porn literacy? Do they need to know what the intersectionality of the gender dysphoria that kicks about up to 72, including 72 versions it used to be, but now 72 gender identity that just swamped them with any sort of notion that they can be what they want to be at any given time, depending on what the degree of the sun is, that they can change and they can be fluid in all movements.
It's necessary to teach them that for two things. If you want Marxist revolutionaries when they grow up, or if you want rape victims along the way, and as far as I'm aware, I could be wrong, but I'm convinced James Lindsay as well, who's a famous author over in America, would agree with me. He works on the podcast New Discourses, and he's knee deep in this stuff. He's easily one of the greatest intellectuals in the world at this stage on wokeism and Marxism. And he has a couple of series there about sexualizing children and grooming children on his podcast. But he says, if you want little Marxist revolutionaries when they grow up, this is the type of ideology you have to move into their brains. And of course, sexualizing children basically normalizes abuse, as far as I'm concerned. How can a child even know if he is or isn't being abused if the abuse itself has been normalized? It's really creepy stuff.
I think we might start now espousing the ethos amongst all ourselves now for forceful speech. I think it was Bernays. I think it was Dr. Bruce Scott that mentioned it as well. Bernays or Sir Q talked about forceful speech. That is doing what you're doing exactly now on your Telegram channel. You're setting out the parameters and little tidbits now that should the prosecution come along and say, well, we've taken snapshots of your comments on Telegram. What did you mean by X, Y, Z? I think it's very clever strategy. Again, placeholders, as you will. You're setting it out as a matter of fact. If you allow your child to succumb, or you allow yourself to forego your parental consent or any involvement in your child's not only education but medical health, their sexual education,
their development,
and their development, which is and should always be and will always be, as long as there's a breath in any one of our lives, is the parents' responsibility and only the parents' responsibility. This fact that strangers coming into the classroom to talk about children's sexual what do they call it? Sexual curiosity and stuff like that. We have to look, as I say, we have to look to the United States, because again, the leaders in the cultural war, they're the leaders that are producing these woke teachers that will come out with this kind of stuff. And again, these are majority primary school teachers or faculty members that espouse this kind of thought. This is what's in the classroom. And again, I'm going to suppose that it's here in Ireland as well, that there are going to be strong adverts, or there are going to be Marxist communists that are self-professed teachers that are propagandizing your children. It used to be only kept for the college campuses. Now it's in your child's classroom. And this is the
Absolutely.
kind of wokeism nonsense that they want to push. And this is the thought process. No white paper, no peer review, no science-based fact. It's about feelings, and it's absolute nonsense and must be resisted. Listen to this.
Advocates are also seemingly really into the idea of finding out their child's sex really early on. And I think this is because of this underlying cultural idea that gender confers humanity. And, if you're against people aborting fetuses, you need to construct them as fully people. And one of the mechanisms to do so is by putting gender on them. So we often call fetuses it, or we call even early babies, we often call it, babies it's crying because it's not quite gotten gender and it's not quite become a person. But a lot of conservatives who are really anti-abortion and really pro-reproduction, they're obsessed with gendering their children before they're even born. So they come into the world fully gendered because it's how to humanize them and to stop people from being able to have safe access to abortions.
Again, what do you make of that, Mike? That's a whole lot of nonsense just thrown out in one
I,
spew.
it's like, for a start, that guy there has been, I assume it's a guy, has been absolutely brainwashed out of his mind. And the way he talks about human life as if it's just a platform to step on to get where you want to go. It chilling stuff like that, it terrifies me. And the thing is, these people, I have no doubt in my mind, occupy our colleges. They're being brought up to think exactly like him in primary school and secondary school and colleges. And one of these days, they're going to be our next group of politicians. These people are being brainwashed with the idea that you are merely a meat obstacle to get to where they want to get. And that's to me, that it seems the direction we're going in.
It's to dehumanize. Again, part of their agenda is unfettered abortion. Part of the agenda then is the complete propagandization of children. To go along with that, you know, nebulous tenet of love is love. It's so open. And again, it's love is love with animals. You know, you can have your favorite pet. Let's explore your sexual curiosity between you and Fido. All that kind of nonsense to destroy young minds. But again, I'm going to play one more video, because this is a what the fuck sort of moment when you hear what this thing has to say. And I will describe them as thing. These are people with mental dysphoria. These are people with a mental illness. And it's quite clear that our psychology departments, our medical institutions are corrupted and perverted to follow along with the transhumanist agenda. Transgenderism is a hop, skip, and a jump. Transgenderism is a hop, skip, and a jump into the transhumanism idea. The very same way that I did have a great analogy there, but it just bounced off my head. But I want to play this before we run out of time, so we don't jump over Melissa's. Have a listen to this one, Mike.
If your parent is one of those parents that's not good at parenting, they may wish for you to remember all the good things. Remember all the ways they helped, all the things, the ways they went out of their way to be good to you somehow, and forget everything that was traumatizing, awful, negative, abusive. That's not fair. You should be able to be in relationship and talk about the full picture. And if they are unwilling to do that, you need to consider not being in relationship with them.
That to me is straight out of Mao's handbook there. You know what I mean? Getting the children to rat out their parents in the little bit of book. What did your crimes do? These people that they want to discuss these matters behind closed doors without your knowledge or consent, so that they can proffer the idea that if your parent doesn't allow you to transgender or modify your body, then you should divorce from your parents. There's been an example of that in the United States. That will come over here, because I've seen the politicians over here waving the trans flags. I think it was the Green Party. Labour are keen to do it. All these Sinn Féin are all over it as well. We see you. We understand. We hear your voice. This 0.01 of body dysmorphia that they're using to culturally appropriate, catch all our Zoomer generation to signify and to never critically think about what they're advocating for. Yes, we should shut down certain people's speech because they're upsetting this small outlier minority, and we must change the majority viewpoint for the minority in all things. Marxism 101. Back to you, Mike.
You know, I was just thinking for a second there, I would actually hate to be that person who actually does suffer from gender dysphoria and have my illness used as a weapon to literally change the landscape of the West. They're literally using it to change the landscape of the West, because all these benevolent laws that are designed to shut you up and designed to force you to comply, it's all part of the agenda. All these tweaks to the school programs is designed to brainwash your child. It's designed to make little Marxist revolutionaries when they grow up. It's designed to make them desensitized to sex. It's designed to kill the family. It's all designed to destruct. There's nothing that I see on this agenda that seeks to build anything that's worth it. It's all anti-freedom. It's all conform. It's brainwashing. It's delusion. It's crazy to me.
Okay, now I want to activate. Sorry, let me jump back here. I want to activate our parents, and particularly the mama bears in the house. Mama bears working, mama bears at home, papa bears working, papa bears at home. This is your moment. This is your time, and you need to come together as a tribe. Parental guide, because this is your child. My children are born. My children are raised. They're out and working. A young adult making their own case. If this was my fight, I'd be there. I need to make you aware that only you can defend your child's future. Whether you want to just take them off and try to avoid it for as long as you can, I think the better option is to pitch your flag, draw the line, and say, no, I will not allow my child to be taught this nonsense or any other of this nonsense. And we will come together and form a tribe like the Welsh ladies over here doing. I want to play this out, and we might sign off on this, because you have strength in numbers. The power is in your hands. When we realize that the power with boots on the street can overturn any and all of this, 250,000 turned out for the water charges back in the day, based on a concern for human rights and the attachment to water. Should you want human rights or the basic parental rights to protect and defend your child, then you must garner together in numbers and be an effective voice and start pushing back on this nonsense. This has to be your red line.
Most of you already know about our fight against the RSE, Relationship and Sexuality Education. Most of you know about our fight, but any of you that don't know, we have been actively campaigning for almost 2 years now against what the Welsh Government are bringing into all our schools from age 3 with no parental opt-out. So today, we have got some very special updates, haven't we, Kim?
We have. We've been, as you know, guys, it's been really quiet. And when it's quiet, it's because we are busy. And boy, have we been busy. But this is it now, guys. This is Fight Club. This is the moment that we knew would eventually happen. Because we're not going nowhere. They don't do this to our kids and get away with it.
That's the kind of fire I want our mamas and papa bears to bring to the debate. That again, we've known since 2019, since the introduction to the Relationships and Sex Education Bill. I've done a complete 6-7 series broadcast on the entirety. It's there in the back catalogue. But this is now the moment. It's on your doorstep, and they're going to try and use those emergency wartime powers to push through the sexualization of your children, which is grooming. Nothing simpler. State-sanctioned grooming to emotionally damage your children, to cause them forever dependent on Big Daddy state that they can only see. And that's what it is. It's emotional damage.
Emotional damage.
Mike, the last word to you, please, brother.
No, I think you're absolutely right. If you have a child, now is your time. You have morality on your side on this one. You even have science on your side on this one. Gender dysphoria literally kills people. And a lot of children, again, we know from studies, never even had gender dysphoria, but decided to go through the entire process in the operation because it was the hip thing to do. They were groomed, they were brainwashed into going down this road. And there's any amount of stories on YouTube where they tell us that they regret everything they did. And at the same time, it's the parents' responsibility. If their parents stepped in at that time, their child's bodies and their lives would have been sacrificed for, again, a toxic ideology. It's your time to step up, do the right thing.
Yeah, Mike, couldn't agree with you more. I was going to last bit there before I sign up. Mike, just to touch in with your situation, come back anytime. You don't have to open door invitation. Let us know of any changes to the situation, what they're going for. We're going to follow your case and anybody else's case when they try and use what was, as you said, was supposed to be an exclusion zone, but is now being used now to prosecute you for, the protected classes. And again, if you think that just you're a small minority, that the politicians won't include themselves to be part of the protected classes that cannot be criticized or have bodyguards, and you cannot judge them, they're going to include themselves. Just read 1984, or even better still, read Animal Farm. Some pigs are more equal than others. Mike, absolute legend. Thanks very much. And again, I want to extend the hand as well to Chopper. Chopper wants to come in and say a few words. I'd love to have him. And again, we'll get Philip on any old time, but he's motoring away under his own steam over there. Just by way, just have that backup channel on Odyssey and BitChute, all that ready because they will close down your broadcast. I hope you're double broadcasting on the alternative platforms as well.
I'm not, but I have my videos saved. It's actually good.
Yeah. Well, they'll probably be enjoined in the future when the nationalists and the populists take over, and we do scorched earth. I will be Tarkumada on the religious front, because our churches need to be removed. That this insanity that's in our church. Somebody going to say it in passing convention. Box Day says, "Why aren't women allowed to be priests and pastors?" This is why women aren't allowed to be priests and pastors. As the world's first lesbian bishop calls for church to remove crosses to install Muslim prayer. I mean, where do we even get going? That's another interview in itself. And we haven't even got there. You think you're going to arrest them over hate speech? Oh, stop! I kind of have to be careful. I don't trip. But we will have that conversation. That's another elephant in the room. And boy, Jesus, we've got Dumbo Circus here. We've got that many elephants squeezing themselves into the second room. Nobody wants to talk about it. Listen,
the whole place is on fire.
Please make your way over to Satirical Soldier. You'll find the same name on YouTube. He's also got a Telegram channel posting out there and dishing out those digital bullets, because we do love those digital bullets. But not our elected leaders, our selected leaders, I should say. Don't forget to make your way over to. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I just said I'm actually in the middle of writing another script. Hopefully, I get it out tomorrow. To just because I like responding to these politicians. I don't like to let them think for a second they have the moral high ground, because they don't. They absolutely don't. We have it. Those of us on the side of freedom have it. Just saying.
100%, Mike. And like I said, you have your own platform. Everything and anything that you've said cannot be taken out of context. You have the originals. You've made the declaration before any broadcast. This is used for educational purposes. This is a quantifier. And any fucking Lugan Press journalist, Conor Gallagher et al., I've had run-ins with them. I've had the same sort of shit. They're going to try and set you up and frame you up as the nasty far right. But the fact that you're ex-defence forces now, I hope that attracts more of our young defence forces to pay attention, because they're the foot soldiers they're going to use to employ on the next round of lockdowns and to secure people in quarantine, isolation centres. You need to check your road, and you need to understand you should not be following illegal orders or unlawful orders, and you can't step outside, and you will be protected. Do not be mandated or fall stupid into that prey. Act accordingly, because the rules of engagement apply all the way through, and you must document and hold your records.
Yeah. I do solemnly swear that I will be faithful to Ireland, not to the fucking government, to Ireland. Just keep that in your brain all the time.
Legend, Mike. I'll talk to you real soon. Thanks for jumping in tonight.
Thank you. Take it easy, buddy.
God bless. Okay, you crazy bastards, you crazy hardy bastards. I want to thank. Could have gone on for a lot longer, but we try and keep this broadcast short. Make your way over to Anti-Lockdown Ireland over there. Jump in and join Melissa Cumier and her great financial reports on what the real cause and why they're trying to hide the inflationary tactics. I made that posit there with Mike. I believe this human trafficking scheme that they're borrowing in is so that they can borrow off these tax units to keep the fund down, to hide inflation. Because when it can no longer hide it, that's when you're going to see the teeth of the state sticking out and start to bear all ends. But they're trying to stick that stinger in quicker than you can notice. We're aware of it. Let's keep fighting back. Look after yourself, everybody. See you on the next broadcast this Wednesday. Be there or be square. Oh, I didn't. I did. Shake yourselves up and let's just forget I said that. I didn't mean to cause you all emotional damage. To all you communists. Bite on that. Us, everybody, be good.